Thank you for tuning in to SANGAHZ the Podcast with me, Romeo Johnson, where we celebrate extraordinary singers and learn from industry veterans. Welcome to SANGAHZ the Podcast with yours truly, Romeo Johnson. Thank you for joining in. This is going to be a very special day. I'm interviewing someone that I kind of teased you guys about in the R&B Woodson episode. You heard me talk about someone who was very instrumental in the beginning of my career, but I didn't tell you his name. I just told you that we met at an R&B Woodson concert, and I told you why, because he's coming up. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Will Wheaton.
What up?
What's poppin', Mr. Will Wheaton?
Man, you know, live in your world. How you
Brother,
been?
sir, I'm so blessed. Thanks to people like you dig.
I was just being obedient, as I always say to you. God did the rest.
Thank you for being obedient. Thank you, God, for the instruction.
For the direction.
For the direction.
For the direction, Father God. Yes, sir.
I'm so excited, man, to have you on the podcast because it's SANGAHZ the Podcast.
Yes, sir.
And the thing I want to focus on is the things and the people that are not focused on so much. You know, we know the celebrities and we know the icons and all of that. We very seldom understand the people who support them and help them shine. You know, whether it's writing songs for them, whether it's vocally coaching them, doing arrangements for them, or whatever. And, you know, for years and years, we've heard sometimes the background singers are better than the lead singer. You did.
In most cases, they are. In most cases, they are.
Yes, sir. So we have so much to talk about, man, and I'm going to try my best to not float into our friendship conversation.
That's going to be a job. That's going to be a job.
But
people will get something out of it either way. I know that.
We met years ago, about years ago.
I think it was around then. That's what I think it was.
Look here, the problem is 19.
Exactly. There's no two to be found. Not even in the end. There's not a two to be found. It is 19. Yes, sir.
Y'all met like 2000 what?
Nope.
As the old folks say, no, we met at 1900 and 1900 and
it was a minute or two ago.
It wasn't even 1990s. Come on now.
It was in the 80s. Sure.
It was in the 80s. So we go back.
Yes,
I wanted to address what we were just talking about off camera a second ago. You've done so many things and such great things, but you're not like a household name. Like I'm not like a household name. And people don't understand the importance sometimes, you know, when you see podcasts or interviews or television shows or whatever, you see all the celebrities being interviewed and you see the legends talked about, and they deserve it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no one does it alone.
Right.
And as you know, I'm one of those people, I love to reach back and mention. You know, a lot of times people say, well, how did you get started? And who is, they think it's a great thing to be like, well, you know, when I first met Tom Jones and whatever, you know, they got to pull out some celebrity and be like, yeah, well, you know, I first started when I met Frank Sinatra.
Frank heard me over at the lounge and he came in. You're going to be a star.
No, I call him Frankie. People would say, you know, so Vesta Williams kind of gave you your start, didn't she? And I'm like, Vesta was my girl. Vesta was my sister, and she gave me my first tour. I give her that. Vesta used to talk a lot of smack. She's like, I took his virginity away, and everybody was like, you know, Vesta was crazy.
As only she could say. Yes, sir.
I took his virginity away, and I'm like, yo, what? I mean, I was the first tour. You know, he was a tour virgin. I'm like,
you're like, yeah, clean that up, hurry up.
People are already wondering. Let's not. We don't need to stir that up no more. But I want to talk about how so many people play a big role in celebrities' lives and just are doing great things consistently behind the scenes. You know, so I tell people, you know, this guy named Will Wheaton was pretty much the guy who set me up, who's everything that I've done. It funnels down to that one guy introducing me to multiple people who introduced me to multiple people. So I want to talk about that, man, because I want people to see that. And I want people to know who Will Wheaton is, the things that you've done, the things that you're doing. Yeah. And and some of your thought processes over the years in this industry. Let me pull up a little note or two so I can stay outside of us just laughing and talking about us.
You know that's gonna happen no matter what.
Now I'll try to pull it back because this is also. Ladies and gentlemen, this is SANGAHZ the Podcast, and we have Will Wheaton in the house today. And put up my podcast voice. And
not well.
Like, when did it start for you as a child? When did it click?
What happened with me was actually my mom, who you know and remember.
Yes.
My mom tricked me into singing. I always tell people.
Okay.
And basically, what she did was she would, we'd be around the house doing whatever, and she'd sing something to me, make me sing it back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sing it back. And, I'm just thinking, whatever. Right. I'm like, hey, whatever gets me a biscuit, I'm good. Come on, let's do it. So by the time I got to about, I think was probably 10 or 11, somewhere in there, when I was able to get into the choir, she was like, I tell you what, if you join the choir, I will let you drive the car after rehearsal. And she knew I was a car fanatic.
Yeah, they know all the tricks.
So I went to choir rehearsal. After choir rehearsal, we go to this little place, which is now the 105 freeway, and I'd drive the car. It was really cool. And, so I just went to the choir rehearsal just so I could drive the car. I didn't care about singing. I wanted to drive the car. I got into choir, and then the woman who was the director, her name is Frances Gant, she said, I want you to sing a solo. I'm like, what is a solo? Okay, so she taught me this song from Godspell called Day by Day.
Okay.
I sang the solo, and people started clapping. And the moment that happened, I never needed to drive the car again.
That was it.
It was that. Like, this is it. I like this. This will work. We can do this. And that's really kind of where it started and how it started. And then from that moment, a little while later, my mom got me a private voice teacher. And I was actually studying to sing opera.
Oh, wow. Okay.
My mom went to school with Leontine Price.
Are you serious?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And because Leontine Price is from Laurel, Mississippi, which is where I was born.
That's right.
Her mother used to keep me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it really? You were born? This is SANGAHZ the Podcast. We have Will Wheaton.
Yes, that is correct. But no, her mother used to actually keep me, and so mom saw what happened with Leontine, so she was like, "You need to study classical music," and I'm like, "Okay." So I started with a teacher. His name was Furman Fordham, and Lena Horne. Furman Fordham.
Okay.
Say that 10 times fast if you just
right.
Want. He was actually Lena Horne's vocal coach and Little Richard for a while, which was interesting.
Wow.
That was
but Little Richard wasn't no joke though.
No, he was not. No, he was not.
We can laugh and joke about all the extras, but he wasn't no joke.
Yes, sir. He could make it happen and constantly. And so he got me into the arias and singing in Italian and French and all that stuff. But then as I began to get older, that was not sexy. Where's the folks that's doing the fun stuff? So that's when I got heavy into more the R&B, that genre of music. Yeah. I started with a band called Free Fall, which is actually from my church. The creator's name was Michael Clark, and then I started doing my own shows. And one of the places that Free Fall played was a place called At My Place.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know you remember it. And so, because of Free Fall, I got my own gig at my place.
Gotcha.
And we were doing sold out shows with original music.
This is in Santa Monica, California.
Yes, sir. 1026 Wilshire Boulevard in Santa Monica. This is before social media. This is before the internet, before anything. Yeah. But people were coming partially because they knew me from Free Fall, but also because they just loved, the music. From there, I got into session singing and pursuing record deals and all that fun stuff. And I wound up I'm trying to think of how the record thing happened.
By the way, these are actually things I don't know, right?
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
This is actually very interesting.
You came in right around the time that At My Place was happening.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then we even did a couple other gigs at My Place with some other people who we won't. One or two that we won't probably have to. But yeah, you came in at My Place time.
So right in that era, that's where we met.
Yes, sir.
So I was explaining in my Ollie Woodson episode.
Yes, sir.
That Ollie was the first person that gave me my opportunity in LA. I knew him from Chattanooga. We met in Chattanooga, and so when we bumped into each other in LA, we do gigs with him, and all that's in the episode of the Ollie Woodson episode. And as I was saying in the episode, there was a young man in the audience. And I knew right away, I said, this guy has to be a singer because he was responding to all of our vocal things.
Y'all were about to make me run out of that place. That between Ollie singing and you harmonizing with the crazy stuff he was already singing, I'm like, what is happening to my brain? I think that was the first time I saw a live show that really impressed me. That made me go, okay, this is where you need to be. Because to me, Ollie was the gold standard. I mean, he was just and the funny thing is, I knew that he was a part of the Temptations, but I think around that time he was kind of doing a solo thing, if I remember.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I heard about the show on the radio. I'm going to see this show, and then I get there, and y'all start, and then he's singing, doing all the crazy stuff he does, and then here you come with a harmony that's as crazy as what he's singing, and I'm like, this is okay. This here, right here. This is what I need to be. This is what I need to aspire to, because this is no joke.
It was such a high, man. I learned so much from. I addressed that Ollie was the number one singer's singer. I remember watching you respond to us, and I was like, this dude has to be a singer. Ollie and I both noticed you, right? So we started to hone in on you because you were hyping us up, right? And we were like, good, he gets it, right?
Man.
And after the show, and I remember you saying, so do you work with Ollie exclusively? Is that what? And I was like, no, I'm working. I'm working.
I'm working with everybody.
I'm new here, and I'm working for whoever's going to pay me. So I want to flip it because I've already told my side of the story, and I want you to tell me what were you thinking, what was coming from your side.
That show let me know how lacking I was when it came to live performance. I was like, okay, so yeah, this here is where you need to get to. And but my real thought, when I asked you that question was, where you been? That because like I said, what was killing me more than what Ollie was doing was the fact that you were straight on top of it with the harmonies were dead on, the licks were, everything was perfect. I'm like, this brother, everybody needs to know this man right here because he's not playing. You can hang with Ollie Woodson, you ain't playing. Because Ollie was no joke, right? So that was my thought at the time, and you were just such a cool dude. It was like, okay, folks need to know who he is. That was where the brain was.
Well, we exchanged information, and you said, I have some people I want to introduce you to, and you introduced me to your core people who were hanging. And like you said, At My Place was the spot at that time. And it was like, Daryl Smith and Valerie Pinkston and Scott Mayo and John Fluker, I think. And
Kim Edwards.
And Carl, guitar player. It was
Carl Burnett. Yes, sir.
Also, I have to mention this name, Tony Warren.
Tony Warren at the time was singing all over Los Angeles and anywhere they would let him.
Yeah. And the reason that I say it's important that I mention him is because you introduced me to him, and he was the one that introduced me to Vesta.
That's right. They were tight, right?
They were tight, right? So he got me started there, and then you also introduced me to Scott, which led to the Jody Watley gig. It was just everything in my career came from you, introduced me to that score of people. So I'm forever grateful for you on that. Now I want to get back to you though. Who influenced you vocally? Because you have a very unique tone, right? Ever since I've known you, you've had this rich tone. And to me, it was like Luther Vandross, Will Downing, Will Wheaton. Like y'all had that warm. Did you have that when you were young too?
Actually, the interesting thing about my voice and what it is, what it has become is, until I was 16, I was a first tenor. So much you didn't know. At that point, I didn't have a false. That's what was crazy. But I could sing all the way up to a high C, but I could not do anything else. So what wound up happening is I had a severe bout with tonsillitis.
Okay.
And the doctor told my mother, he said, we've got to take his tonsils out, because if we don't, they're actually going to eventually kill him. So let's get them out. let's make them go away. But the interesting thing is, right at the time the surgery happened, it's like they took the tonsils out and my voice changed at the same time.
Okay.
So I lost like 5 of the notes that I had on the top, but then all of a sudden, all this voice on the bottom showed up. It was the weirdest thing. I went back to choir that next year at school. I didn't know where to sing. I'm like, let me go in the back with the basses, because I can't sing nothing I used to sing. What I mean? But the influences absolutely were Luther first. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is, I didn't really know of Will. He was a new artist, But what's crazy about that is, Island Records tried to hire me to be a staff writer for him. They made the offer, and I was advised not to do it because I was told I would probably wind up only being a staff writer and never ever be able to do the artist thing. I wanted to be an artist, so okay, all right, I'll take a pause on that. I eventually wound up writing for him anyway, though. I did a song with my boy Robert Palmer and Howard McCrary called "Baby Come to Me." Robert called me and says, "Man, I got this tune. I think you need to put something on it." I'm like, okay. So I come in, we do it. Brought in Val. We did it on a Thursday night. Sent it to him the next morning. I'm sorry, we did it on a Wednesday night. Sent it to him Thursday morning. He calls and says, "I'm cutting this tune." I'm like, okay.
Was that your first placement?
Yes, it was.
Nice.
But it was interesting because it was almost kind of full circle, because I had been offered to write for him. I turned it down, and then bam, here I come right back with a song on Will Downing. So it was it was kind of like confirmation in a way. So,
yeah, but you know what? It was coming from a different place and a different level of respect. There were so many people when I was growing up that inspired me and influenced me vocally that were not famous at all. Like my mom, obviously. And then it was like men at church. Who is there anyone that influenced you vocally that we wouldn't know by name?
Yeah, both sides of my family sing, but more so on my mother's side than on my dad's side. Not because they were any less, but just my mother's side of the family sang more than
more.
My dad's side. One of my cousins on my mom's side, my mom's niece, was actually just 2 points from getting into Juilliard, and she is an amazing singer. And then there was my mom, her sister, her brothers, and my dad. So whenever they would get together, singing was going to happen.
I love it.
So it was always like, okay, well, I'm gonna sit down and listen, because I can't do nothing that they're doing. So I'm gonna listen
all around you. You were absorbing all of it.
Yes, sir.
I love it.
Sir. So they were my early influences, and then there was a woman at my church. She actually became our minister's wife after he and his first wife divorced. Her name was Barbara Bonnie.
She was singing her face off, wasn't she? She sang right up in the first lady slot. Just she
came on through. She came right on through.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, you clown it, but that's exactly how she sang, and ranged for weeks.
Oh, I love it.
It was crazy. It was crazy. But she was the person who actually kind of got me out of the classical thing. Because at that time, I was my whole every twice a week I was at the voice class learning, And so when I started singing the gospel stuff, she was like, "Yeah, you can't, you can't come up here with all that. That's not going to work."
Bro, let me tell you something. I've been coaching for 30 years, almost 30 years. And the one thing that I have experienced multiple times is trying to take these young classical singers, opera singers who want to be pop R&B singers and make them understand it's a totally different approach.
It's a whole different approach, and it's a whole different mentality, and you have to pretty much unlearn everything you learned.
That's so true.
Because the classical teaches you a whole other, like my voice teacher, Dr. Fordham, would be like, I don't want you out at night. If you're driving in the car, you keep the window up because I don't want to get any air in your vocal cords. And I'm like, the windows are down. I'm running around at night, nothing is mattering. But when I met Barbara was a classically trained soprano.
Okay.
But could throw down on some gospel like you just couldn't even understand.
I love it.
And so she came up to me one day after church and she said, "I love how you sing, but you've got to get a whole nother thing if you want to do more, especially if you want to be in the business. To open up and start singing and stop being so worried about protecting my instrument and start figuring out how to touch people." And that for me was probably more valuable than anything. Anything.
Yep. I say all the time, singing is like motivational speaking with the melody. You gotta connect to people. Yep. I want to ask you this. Was there anything or anyone that tried to discourage you from pursuing music?
Oddly enough, one of my doctors. That's an interesting statement. And I have yet to know what his motivation for the statement was, but he was like, "You don't need to sing because it's always going to be a problem." So I don't know if he was dating somebody or married to somebody that had run off from him. And I had gone to him because I was having an issue with something. I don't know what was going on at the time. And his whole conversation to me was, no, you shouldn't do this. So needless to say, he was fired and I went and got a new doctor. And, and my first question to him was, "Is there any reason I shouldn't be singing?" He's like, "Absolutely not. You're fine." So, and I've been with that doctor. His name is Dr. Root. I've been with him ever since. That's been almost 40 years.
Beautiful.
He was the only person that tried to discourage me. My dad was the first person that made me start charging people. Because prior to his conversation, if anybody asked me to sing, I was just so happy they thought I could sing. I'd be like, "I'm there." Whatever, wedding, funeral, I didn't care what it was, right? And so I came home from church one day, I think it was, and no, I'm sorry, it was from a wedding actually. And my dad said, "What you charging to sing at them weddings?"
I love it. Come on, Dad.
I said, "Nothing really." And he said, "Why ain't you charging?" I said, "Well, Dad, I mean, who am I? How can I tell somebody to pay me something?" And so he said,
"You the one they asked to come and sing. That's who you are."
That one. He said the words that I will never forget. He said, "If people ain't got no money, they shouldn't be getting married." I was like, "Oh." So the next time somebody called me, I said, "This is what I charge." And it shocked me that they were like, "Oh my God, we thought it would be more." I was like, "Okay." So that next one was more. But it was him that got me started. Then my mom, every once in a while, she would make a statement.
"Some of these musicians die and they can't bury themselves."
Wow.
Okay, so make sure you can bury yourself.
Oh my God.
If you decide to do this, make sure you can at least they can put some dirt over you and you'll be all right.
That is what you call parents parenting, bro. Your dad was like, "This is all good, but you got to make a living." And he wanted you to see that there's value to what you bring.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You don't have to just be so excited that they're asking you, and they see the value. He's trying to get you to see the value, right? I just love that your dad put your focus on there's value to what you bring, and I love that your mom said, "Make sure you can bury yourself." You've done a lot, man, that I know of, and people who know you, we know all of the things that you've done. Before we get off here, I definitely want you to let people know that you covered the Michael Jackson cover.
"Lady in My Life." Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So tell us a story about how that happened.
So in 1992, right after I had done a couple shows, and I had started really getting more into the like TV and commercial stuff, singing jingles and all that kind of stuff. And subsequently, I wound up getting an agent, woman by the name of Susan Salgado. Pretty sure that's a name you know.
I know very well.
Yeah. Susan called me and said, "Hey, Dick Clark is creating the show." At the time, Star Search was the main show in town. But the problem with Star Search that they were having is most of the people were considered contest winners, so they really couldn't translate that into like a record contract. Most of them, the winners couldn't. The interesting thing is, Brandy did Star Search and wound up, going on and becoming a recording artist. But so Dick Clark wanted to do a show where you actually won a recording deal. So I went and I auditioned. There were 3,000 people auditioned. I was number 3,000.
Oh, wow.
I went, and to bring it full circle, Tony Warren was there.
Wow.
As well as Terry Bradford. But I was the last person to audition. Everybody else sang a cover song. I sang Never Meant to Hurt You, which is one of my songs. In my brain, I thought, okay, if they're looking for artists, then they should be looking for, whatever. So I sang Never Meant to Hurt You. To me, the audition fell flat because I thought, okay, they don't know this song, and they probably think, who does he think he is coming in and singing some song anybody ever heard? But I did it. Auditions are, you do them and you leave it there and you go.
Absolutely.
So I get home maybe 3 or 4 hours later. Susan calls me and she's screaming and hollering, "They want you for the show. They want you." And I'm like, okay, all right, cool. So we get to the show, and the show was actually 3 categories. It was male vocalist, female vocalist, and then there was a spokesmodel category.
Okay.
So the spokesmodels were going to get actual modeling contracts, and the female and the male, they got recording contracts. So on the show, while we were rehearsing, I decided I need to do something that people know, because the audition kind of spooked me. So I'm like, let me find something. So I don't know why I chose Lady in My Life, even though it's a song that I love. I had never sung it prior to that day, the day that we did it on the show.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I learned it in rehearsal. Terry Bradford, I think, was the one who gave me the idea. I learned it in rehearsal, and then I think the taping was the next day. When I walked in, I sat down in the audience, because everybody was up doing their thing, and they were waiting to be called to sing or whatever. And I sat in front of the 2 other male contestants. I sat behind, rather, excuse me. And one of them said to the other, "Do you know some idiot is singing a cover tune?" I will never forget that, because all I could think was, "Oh shit, I done messed up again." Whatever. So I go and we do it in rehearsal, and everybody's like, "Oh, okay, wow." And I'm noticing that I'm getting this reaction, but I'm unsure how to read it. I'm unsure if they're thinking, how are we gonna clear this tune, or I didn't know what was going on with it, but that's what was happening. So the show goes to air, do the song, and we get done, and the whole amphitheater just goes up, because this was at the Universal Amphitheater before they bulldozed it and made it a ride of some sort. And subsequently, I wound up winning the show, and I got a record deal on MCA Records. And let's just say that was a lesson in what can go wrong will go wrong.
Really? Well, first of all, let me just say I got a chance to see a video of the performance, and you killed it, bro. It's nothing better than seeing someone. I talked about this with Ollie and Luther. There are certain people that can do a cover song, and from this point on, you almost forget the original version sometimes. So I saw the performance. Of course, you did this before I met you, but I was watching you and I was like, man, you were so poised. You look like a star, man, like a professional. And bro, your choices of melody, your tone, you killed it. So I see why the audience went crazy. I was like, look at my man rocking it.
like I said, I was unsure what the reaction was because I was so pensive because of what had happened with the audition. I'm like, okay, let me make sure I do my best. But the funny thing is, Malcolm Jamal was one of the hosts of the show, and after we finished the run through before we went to air, we were at craft services getting some food, and you know he's a host, so he really kind of can't talk to anybody specifically, or whatever. But he and I laughed about this a while ago. He walked up next to me and without anybody knowing he was talking to me, he said, "You kind of showing out a little bit, huh?" And that was when I knew. That was when I was like, "Okay,
this is okay.
I'm doing my best." He said, "Yeah, bro, you ain't playing." I'm like, "Okay," and then he just moved on. You know what I mean? But that was probably the one thing that made me go, okay, so maybe we're on to something. Let's now do it and make it happen. But that's so basically the recording of The Lady of My Life happened.
Let's just hold up. Let's stop blow past this joint. You won first place and you got the record deal. Let's just not just like skim over that real quick. Last person to audition,
yes, sir,
and you ended up winning this joint. Look at God.
Yes, he's a good God. He's a good God. But what the reason that I probably blow past it is because the experience with MCA was absolutely the worst. What wound up happening to me was I got caught between a feud that had nothing to do with me.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that type of thing happening before.
There was the person who was in charge. I'm not going to mention names. That'll be in the book. But the person that was in charge was pro me.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he was newly in charge, and the people who had already been there were not feeling him.
They were challenging his being in charge.
Yes,
they were trying to sabotage anything that he brought.
Exactly, and I became the scapegoat for it.
Yeah.
And it turned in. It got to the place where my attorney said to me, he said, "Listen, you need to go in and you need to show them you're a viable artist." So I did.
Yes.
They hooked me up with the producer, Les Pierce, who's still one of my road dogs to this day. And we went in that night because the first thing that the other side said was, "I think you could be the next Nat King Cole." And I said, "Nope, that's not myself." But see, here's what I'll say to artists, anybody who's listening. Representation is important because as little contact as they can have with you, the better.
Okay.
Because in some cases, that contact can lead to your demise.
Okay. Explain, please.
That's exactly what happened to me because I was interacting with them directly. Because the hard part of me is I'm a businessman who sings. So I show up and I'm about the business. I'm about let's get this done. Da, da, da. Damn a manager, damn an attorney. This is what I want to do. This is how we're going to do it. Blah 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 blah. Well, most of the record people don't like that because they're used to artists being creatives and being like, "Oh, just tell me what to do and I'll see."
Exactly. So true.
I've never been that dude. I've always had to be in control of me because people always kind of thought that my voice was either higher than it was, or they thought, he can do this or he can do that or whatever. Hence, Nat King Cole. And I'm like, no, that's not myself. I said to her, I said, when women walk up to me, they don't say, you moved me emotionally. I said, women walk up to me and say sexual things to me. So
come on now. Come on for the sexual thing. I
won't say what they are, but that's what they do. I said, that tells me that the sell is different. And if we want to win, we've got to market to the sell. So I said, what we can do, because at the time, Barry White wasn't happening again yet. I said, let's do a Barry White cover. So I went in that night to the studio and I'm gonna love you, love you, love you. And we brought it back the next day, played it for the guy who was pro Will. He starts losing his mind. Yeah. He's like, oh my God. So he said, I need another single. I went back in the studio that night. Okay. Did a song that's on my Consenting Adults record that's called I Belong to You. Okay. We had those two singles. We took that back the next day because at this point I'm trying to prove to them I'm a viable artist and I can really make it. Absolutely. Bam, take that single back. He says, you know what, full album deal, because what I won was a single deal. So
Okay.
he goes, here's what it's going to be: a full album deal, all in. I will give you the budget. You and Les make the record. I don't care what the record costs. You keep it. We'll be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
We go to start recording.
Yeah.
Les calls in to order the first check so we could start paying for the studios and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, there's a freeze on Will's account. We can't issue you any money.
This is coming from the label?
Yeah, coming from the accounting department. So
and so what was their reason behind that?
They didn't give him a reason, but you knew they were going to give me one. So to the label I went.
Hello.
This is why I say what I say. It's very important that an artist be an artist.
Come on, man.
At least until you're established.
Mm-hmm.
Because what wound up happening is I went in there and was like, why are my budgets frozen? What the hell's going on?
Right.
And then the person who was against me said, well, we don't like the direction of where you're going.
Wow.
We who? Your boss just said they were turning my whole situation around. Right. But see, that was the problem. What I didn't know was at that time, there were higher ups that were listening to this other person.
Of course.
And they were against her boss as well.
Exactly.
What wound up happening was I got the renegotiated contract.
Mm-hmm.
My attorney called me and goes, it's in, it's all on paper. This is great. Let me know when you can come in and sign it. I'm like, cool. The next day, he calls me and says, MCA has just said that you will either get the original deal or nothing.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
So then I've got the boss calling me saying, just sign it. I'll give you what I promised and blah, 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 blah. My attorney is saying, if it ain't on paper, you can't hold nobody to it. It was absolute.
That had to be.
It was crazy. But what was even deeper was Dick Clark called them personally and said, if you will just release whatever you're going to record on him, I will make sure it is a hit record.
Come on, man.
And
what was their response to that?
They said, you get the original deal or you get nothing.
Or no. Mm-hmm. Wow. This just goes to show how petty people can be in this industry. And that's I've been in the game for 30 something years, but you've been in for 30 something years. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't understand my angle sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So you know me better than damn near everybody in the industry. I came from Chattanooga because I love music. Never wanted to be an artist, never wanted to be a star. And I say all the time that I believe God set me up that way, so I wouldn't easily bow down and lose my integrity in order to achieve whatever. So,
which many people do.
Oh, most people in this country does.
Yeah.
It's funny because I listened to you talk about how, you speak for yourself. I've never had a manager in my life. I've never had an agent in my life. Right. And that's where my book came from. Following the voice is basically talking about me following the voice of God and showing me where to move. I love how this is going because it's leading up to the wait. I don't want to miss this either. I heard you mention a book. So you're writing a book. Let's talk about, you don't have to go into detail, but you're coming up with a book, right?
Yeah. And what I'm working to do is to keep it from being, this is what happened to me. And because I always try to come from the positive. I don't want to come from the negative. So I'm working through those pieces of it to make sure that I deliver something that if somebody picks it up, they can pick it up and do something great.
Yeah. This is what this podcast is all about.
I know.
Because in this industry, we have been trained to answer questions a certain way, interview a certain way. We've been trained to pretend.
Yep.
So what happens is you either lie and say what is expected to be heard, or you try to be real and people go, stop being negative.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. So then you have to decide, in which I did years ago, and this is what this is all about. I don't necessarily try to be negative. I don't want to watch people blindly walk into a brick wall. When if I bumped into the wall, who am I to not say, hey, if you do that, you're gonna walk to a brick wall.
Careful, there's a wall there.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you, because I bumped into it. You know, that's the goal of this, is just to be real, right? And to look out for up and coming. To me, what good does it do to be blessed if you don't share the blessing? What good is it to get knowledge if you don't share the knowledge? Period. I'm a parent. You've known my sons since they were babies. Above everything that I've done musically, I'm more proud of my sons and who I've been as a father than anything. And my sons have been told since they were 9 years old, you come talk to me about anything, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Anything. I don't care. There's nothing too little, nothing too big, nothing to be embarrassed about.
Right.
And, there have been times they've come to me and asked me, Dad, have you ever done blah, blah, blah? And I had to go, yeah, I did that. Yep. I've done that before.
I see. What happened was,
and now, because I did that, I can explain to you what comes along with that. Versus going, of course not. Are you doing that? You should be ashamed, and lying to myself and them. Well, it's the same thing in this industry. There are times that we need to say that can be good or it cannot. Watch out for this, watch out for that. Are you just being negative? It's just silly, because God has provided for me my entire life and established an understanding with me that I'm your provider. I don't fear anybody. So you can't intimidate me. You can't cancel me from something that I really don't care about being a part of.
Exactly. The thing with me, because you and I have this in common, my parents never made me think I couldn't have anything I wanted. My mom especially. The lesson was always, you can have that, but you have to go work for it. So I've always known that anything I want, I just have to go and do the work. And whether that comes from music, whether it comes from wherever, I'm going to get what I'm supposed to have or what I feel I should have. And
yes, sir.
Again, it goes back to my dad and the whole conversation.
Yes, sir.
What you charging to sing at the
yes, sir.
That was the genesis of know your worth and go after it.
My next question. When was it that you decided to pursue real estate full time, and what made you make that decision?
Here's the interesting answer to that question. I was involved in real estate for a very long time before anybody knew it. Largely because I had the limiting belief that if people knew I was doing real estate, that they would then think, so he's not really a singer, he's in real estate. Or vice versa. Oh, he's not really in real estate, he sings, so, what could you possibly know? But what real estate happened for me largely because of my mom. From a kid, I would draw, this is going to sound stupid, but it's the truth. I would actually draw apartment buildings. And I would write how much the rent was and just do it. I would literally sit and do it, right? And so my mom saw that and she was like, "You like real estate?" And I'm like, "Wow, yeah, I think I kind of do." She's like, "Well, wow, you need to start, figuring that out and seeing what happens." And the first thing I bought was an investment property. My best friend and I bought a property together. Then I bought my first house. And then subsequently after that, my mom died. Both my mom and dad died in the house that you came to, the house that I grew up in. And I decided this will not be my portal. So I'm going to get rid of this because everybody I love has died in here. So I don't want
that. I don't want the memories. I don't want to. Yeah.
But to show you how God works, in order to sell it, I had to fix it up. Turns out the gentleman that lived right next door to my mom was a contractor. Okay. And I'm standing out there talking to him one day, and we're talking about stuff. And he's like, "I'll help you." So he took me around, showed me, how to get the paint places and the this and that and the other and blah 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 blah. And I wound up selling it for way more than I would have sold it for if I hadn't done that. And as soon as that happened, it was like, wait a minute, ding. The light flipped on. And so I started flipping houses. Because it taught me how to improve value and how to market properties basically. And so by 2007 2008 I had done a whole bunch of flips and properties and whatever, and then entered the mortgage meltdown. And everything that I knew in real estate went out the door.
Wow.
You couldn't get loans. You couldn't it's for properties that you weren't living in. But it was nuts. It was nuts. And so
you had to relearn everything, relearn a new system.
What happened to me was, I'm like, how do I keep selling real estate or working in real estate and I don't own the properties? I'm like, wait, I can become an agent. And in 2000, I had already started taking the test to learn what agents knew. Just because I wanted to see if there was some information in there that would be a benefit to me. I quickly discovered there was not. And most of them don't know anything, because what you learn in real estate school has nothing to do with the actual day-to-day practices of it.
I see.
So I took the test. Fortunately, the thing that I started several years earlier, it was literally expiring at the end of that year, and this was in October.
Gotcha.
So I was able to use all those credits. Went in, took the test. December 31st, 2008, I became a real estate agent.
Beautiful. And during this time, how regularly were you still doing singing gigs, sessions?
Every day.
Beautiful. You go.
Then I was singing all the time. Sessions, commercials.
I remember I just come off tour with Michael Jackson. And I came back and they were doing a singer showcase in Hollywood. They were doing a singer showcase. And I went there and I sang an original song and I sang Reasons. And as I was walking off, this guy tugged me. He said, I got a session I would love to pull you in on. Will you be here Wednesday? I was like, yep.
You said, sure will. Ain't going nowhere.
You knew I was supposed to be flying out on Monday. I was like, hey, listen, I'm going to take advantage of it. I didn't know who the guy was.
Right.
But I knew that I wanted to do jingles. I wanted to get in the jingle game. I go to the session Wednesday. I walk in. First person I see was Philip Ingram, James Ingram's brother. I saw Edna, right? And I'm like, what is this? The engineer's guy's name was Gerhardt. He says, yeah, man, I'm so glad you can make it, man. He said, do you like doing jingles? I was like, huh?
Wow.
He said, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you. This is going to be a jingle. I'm like, wow. So excited, right? And I ended up, he asked me that day, he said, you good at doing ad-libs? I'm like, yeah. So he says, you're a new guy, we're going to try you. So I did a couple of ad-libs. He was like, genius, love it. So he goes, man, we're going to be calling you a lot. Fast forward, I end up moving back to LA. I'm working with them a lot. And he calls me one day and he says, Romeo, I need your help. We got these jingles we're going to be doing. And I need somebody who can sing like bass. Do you know anybody? I was like, yep. I sure do. I said, call my man. He said, Will Wheaton. I said, yep, call him up. And man, what you and me and Micolette, of course, I brought my cousin Micolette in that guy still rents raves over the three of us together. He could just stop us from laughing the whole time, but
that guy, I was gonna say, I don't know how he heard us sing, because between every take we were falling out and running out the door and
clowning. I want you to let the listeners know the titles of any of your CDs that you've done. Let them know how they can find your Michael Jackson cover and stream it. Even your real estate information. Like, let them know everything that you're doing, because you're great at everything you do, bro. So
appreciate it very much. On Instagram, if you follow me at Will Wheaton Music, Will_Wheaton_music on Instagram. The records are Consenting Adults was the first album. The second album is Old School Soul. And then there are two singles. One single is a duet with Bridget Bryant called How Do You? I always mess that up. How Do You? And the other song is the cover of Lady in My Life which you can find on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and pretty much you can find all my music on any streaming platform. It's Will Wheaton, 2 L's, Wheaton, Wheaton. That's where you find me.
Out of all the people that you work with, Will, and the things you've done, what do you consider like the biggest gig?
Gene Carn was the person who taught me how to get out of my head and sing.
I love it.
We played the Universal Amphitheater. Gene Carn's my cousin, and she had come to get me because she was doing the Universal Amphitheater and she needed a background singer. So she's teaching me the parts in the car as we're going to do the gig. She made me on stage. She made me get out of my head and just sing from my heart. So that was probably one of the most impactful moments for me as a performing artist ever. A gig that actually made a huge financial difference in my life would be working with David Foster. I recorded an entire album with him that never was released. Again, the story of my life, records that are done that ain't nobody ever heard. But what I learned from David was the business of music. And I learned it just by sitting around. My dad used to always tell me, listen more than you talk.
Absolutely.
And I learned more from just being in those rooms and listening to what he was doing than I could ever pay somebody to teach me.
I believe it.
That would be the answer. And the biggest lesson out of everything, I think, is to own what you create, which is what you have done a great job at, sir.
Thank you, sir. And you know what? It's so God, because I came into the game so green. You know, people say to me often, man, you made some great decisions. You're a smart guy. You're this. And when I tell you, man, almost 100% of everything that I've done in this whole career, God placed it in my lap. I really can't. That's from gigs to purchasing my homes to everything. It's like, you know, and this is why I will not lose integrity. And this is why I will not bow down to a title or a check or a gig, because what would I be saying to my God, who's providing everything for me and showing me I'm providing for you, whether they with you or whether they're not. So why would you bow down to them? But the moment that I sense that someone wants me to lose my integrity, to sell out, to bow down because of a gig, because of a check, because of it, I'm like, I don't just resist it. I'm offended.
That's right. And you rail against it. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm offended. So I'm like, absolutely not, you know. And yes, I see people all around me at times looks like, what are you doing? Don't, you know. And I'm like, listen, do you got to know who you are and carry yourself accordingly. Do you?
I was talking to somebody the other day who was talking about another artist and, you know, all that they have going on. And I said to them, I'm like, you don't know what has happened to make all those things happen. Don't ever covet something somebody else has, because you don't know what they've done yet.
You don't know. And, you know, when I look back on my career, God has always provided for me outside of the system while he placed me in the middle of it at the peak.
Right. Exactly.
I never did anything outside of, let me think about this. If I feel like I can't sleep at night or God ain't gonna be pleased with it, I'm not doing it. I don't care who you are. When I say these names, just tell me the first thing that bubbles up in you. Okay. D. Harvey.
Should I say, oh man, that was one of the baddest human vocal machines. I don't think I know anybody that was better than D. Harvey.
The most beautiful male voice I've ever heard, I believe.
Ever.
Vesta Williams.
Amazing artist. She was one of the most gifted singers that I knew personally. I remember very well 323. Was it 323-932-1692?
Yes, sir. Phyllis Hyman.
Well, yeah. I actually got cussed out by Phyllis. Brilliant artist. brilliant artist. I got the chance to stand in the wings and listen to her sing. And night after night. And a lot of people don't know this, but Gene Cohn was actually her vocal coach.
I didn't know that.
And if you listen, you'll hear it.
I bet. Yeah. Jennifer Holliday.
Incredible artist. I'm glad to see her getting her shine that I think for so long was like negated for a long time.
Rasan Patterson.
Incredible artist. Rasan just followed me on Instagram, which blew my mind. He's a brilliant singer. I think more than his singing, Rasan's an incredible writer.
Woo, my God. And arranger.
Oh man.
Frank McComb is another one. It's many of them, Yeah. But today is all about Will Wheaton. I thank you so much, man, for being a blessing in my life and, just being a true friend, man. I mean, I came out to LA in 1986. I think I met you in 87. We have tons and tons and tons of friends that we meet in this game. From 1987 to the current, there are 3 people that have been great, consistent friends the whole time. And you're one of those 3. And I appreciate you, man. I appreciate everything that you've done in this industry. I admire how you do such powerful work, and you're so cool and laid back. and it's just amazing to me, man, that you're doing the real estate thing on the level that you're doing it, maintaining this vocal thing the way that you do it, and just living your life. It's really, and hopefully it will inspire me more when I see you getting up and walking and working out. I see you every morning.
Man, listen, I'm trying to stay here and stay well. That is my goal and journey.
I wake up in the morning, I check my phone. Good morning, y'all. Happy Wednesday. I'm gonna get my walk on, and I'm gonna leave here, and I'm gonna do my spin class, and I'm like this. Will's killing it. Man, I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud to call you my friend. Thank you so much for making the time to do this, man. And man,
proud of you. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Of course, man. My brother, I love you, bro. Keep up the great work. Keep inspiring folks. Keep blessing people with houses.
Amen.
And keep blessing people with that voice, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Will Wheaton, give it up. God bless you, bro.
Thank you for tuning in to SANGAHZ the Podcast with me, Romeo Johnson, where we celebrate extraordinary singers and learn from industry veterans.